Okay, I should be having Zig join very shortly.
What up?
The
What up? What
boss.
up?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to just wait or what the process
Oh,
was, but
oh yeah, I'm super grateful, and I really appreciate the opportunity this afternoon to go live with you. Seeing that your schedule, I know to get you on this platform is it actually took a lot, so I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. How are you doing today, and how is Casey today?
no, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I know. Thank you for bringing me on. You're my guy. You're my chairman. So anything you need, I'm gonna
Thank you
pull up
so
and
much.
help out. So, but
Thank you.
yeah, Casey's good. Saturday is usually my podcast lunch day, so I've just
Oh,
been working all morning editing. So, but
amazing.
it's been good. It's been good. What about you? What's happening?
Doing well. It's a little bit cold in here today, and thank God for everything. But everything is going well. I really appreciate it.
Bet, bet,
Okay,
bet.
so we'll just start because I'm super excited, and I can't wait for everyone to hear your story. Your story is an amazing one, and I've worked with you closely, and it's just a privilege to do this. More so that a lot of people can get to know who Zeke is, and get to also hear your story. So we just start. Father, thank you for opportunity again to be a blessing. Let this be an impactful platform in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so Zeke, if I'm to, talk about you, I have a whole lot to say about you. So but I feel it will be best if you just go ahead and introduce yourself. Let people know who Zeke is and what Zeke does and all of that. Then we can go from there.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like I said, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, a quick, long, short story. So essentially, I'm originally from Nigeria. Came here in 2016 as an international student. Came to Kansas City, and been in KC since 2016. So it's been quite the journey. And I think I left UMKC around 2018. I think that's when you came. When did you? Was
Yeah,
it 2017
no, I
or 2018?
2019 there, bro. Eh,
2019, yeah, because I left UMKC for a bit, and then they told me that you gotta pull up. There's this dude called Chinedu who wants to link with you. I'm like, all right, bet. Whenever I pull up, um, but essentially, so I came back to UMKC. I was a civil engineer when I came to UMKC, but I switched to business in 2018, just because I felt that engineering is dope. As a Nigerian, you're told to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, but I was like, engineering's not really for me, even though, it's a good living. It's really a really good living. It gets you good salary, good benefits, but it wasn't really for me. I was doing good and great with grades and all that, but I wasn't feeling like connected. So, but fast forward, came back in 2018, switched to business, and then I started Fired Up Studios, which is kind of the whole platform. And the whole goal of that was just to bring students together to talk about purpose and why. And that's kind of how we met. And we did a lot of on campus events. And back then it was we're doing Bible studies and more religious. And the more we got into the show that we started a radio show on campus, it shifted towards leadership and being able to find your purpose and your why. So, that's going to be my journey. I think me switching to business was a huge shift and a huge risk, just because, like I said, engineering is a really good major. It gives you like, kind of like that. I would say back in knowing that you're going to get a job when you come out, you're going to get a good pay when you come out, and also as an international student, you can be able to get your H1B easier and faster. So I was risking a lot switching from engineering to business because I knew that I wouldn't have that assurance, but me being me, I'm not really someone who is. Um, I'm not afraid of taking risks. So it was another risk I had to take. So I took that risk, went to business, and fast forward, Fired Up Studios is a company today, and we do everything from videography to documentaries to company bios, whatever you can think about. But that was kind of like the long short story of me kind of like shifting from engineering to kind of finding my why. So we can dig deeper into that, but. I am the CEO and founder of Fight Up Studios, which is a video production company here in Kansas City. I'm also the CEO and founder of Ulom, which is an AI-driven all-in-one resource platform for new immigrants, refugees, and international students. Essentially, what we do is we help immigrants when they get here find resources to help them succeed in their new environment. I'm also the creative mind behind City Entrepreneur, which is a Netflix-style show where we interview entrepreneurs, investors, ecosystem builders to kind of hear their journey of how they started a business. So that way, if you are interested in entrepreneurship or you know someone who is an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, they can learn from their same skills and be able to kind of pick and see where you fit in that line. So I kind of do a couple of things all in one, but that's kind of my long wobble
Wow.
journey story to where we
Amazing.
are. So yeah,
Amazing. And like I think like when I actually got into UMKC, I clearly remember like everyone was like, "Have you met Zik? Have you met Zik?" And I'm
all
like,
right.
"Who is this? Who is this guy?" And everything. And like I feel like the first thing we actually met, I think it was I think Crew actually had like an event. This
I
Crew,
think
I think
so.
this yeah, and I think that was the first day I actually got connected with you, and there's been a huge blessing. So I feel like the first question that has really troubled me anytime I actually listen to your story is that you came to UMKC with $10. And looking at this today, $10, I think that's like 16,000 naira. They're about around that 16,
Yes.
17,000. So talk about that.
So to correct that, so it's actually $50.
$50. Okay.
Yes, it's $50. So what I had then was kind of like a pocket money to be able to kind of survive when I'm in KC. And man, I mean, so the true story is this: I've never like really like worked like if you're Nigerian, I never really worked as a teenager or anything like that. I was always living in my dad's house. So I went to college a little bit in Nigeria for like a 2 semesters before I moved here, maybe 4 semesters before I moved to the US. So when I got here, it was kind of eye opening because um, I think the biggest thing for me was one, I said this a lot. I was a huge stutterer when I got here. I was like really bad. Like I stammered a lot. Like I could barely even say my name, right? So coming to KC was kind of a culture shock for me. Being in Kansas City in a place where no one kind of looked like me, and I had $50 in my pocket. That was kind of my day to day, like buying things. And the biggest thing for me then was I was in engineering school, so I always tell this story. There's a vending machine if you go to it's called Floshheim at UMKC. There's a vending machine that where you can get like burgers and chips and all these kind of things. So there was a $1 burger that I always buy. That was like my meal. Um, and as you know, if you're a student, there's always events on campus. So I would always pull up to different events where there's like pizza, where there's food. So whatever. And that's why I was really good at networking, right? Because I knew anyone who had events. So
Yeah,
uh, I had to network and survive. So essentially, I was at different. If there was any event happening, I was either one of the organizers or I was there because I knew that I had to survive with the little that I had. But it was kind of a privilege for me to be able to, be in a position where I was for the first time in my life was responsible for my own actions. Right, I was here by myself in Kansas City, being able to navigate this new environment. It was scary, but it kind of made me realize that no one is coming to help you. Right, you're on your own. You got to figure this out. So,
yeah.
yeah, that's kind of like the long short story of that. Yeah.
So like, how do you actually deal with the culture shock? Because I clearly remember like the first meal I tested in KC, the first meal I actually tasted.
Right.
I think it was I think I actually went to Whole Foods that evening, and I saw this rice. I think it was like kind of like a Brazilian rice or something, and I thought it was actually like Nigerian fried rice. So so I took like I think that was I think I actually had like twenty
Right.
dollars in my pocket, and I paid for that. And when I tasted it, it was horrible. Sorry to say, and I was almost frustrated. Like $20 just like that.
Right.
How
Right.
did I just so? And I actually had that. Oh, you can walk to the counter and say, hey, the food was not good, and can I actually get like a refund?
Right. Right.
And it actually
Right.
was. I just walked to the counter. Hey, I didn't like the food. Can I get like a refund? And so like, how did you deal with the culture shock, the food, the new environment, the cold, and how did you actually deal with that as a young immigrant?
Yeah, so first I want to say shout out to Mary Okafa and Ofreneni. Um, there was a running joke that Mary was kind of like my godmother just because she would cook Nigerian food and sometimes I have to go and eat. So like they would bring food on campus and I would go there and eat. So shout out to Mary and Ofere because at that point, being an international student, you kind of have to find your community, right? And Ofre and Mary, they were fantastic cooks. So
Awesome.
whenever I was hungry, whenever they pulled up, I was like, "Yo, what you guys got today?" Because my belly is rumbling. And back then, so my first culture shock was actually on the plane coming to the U.S.
Hmm.
So have in mind, I never went on a plane ever until I came to the U.S. and it was the longest flight. So I was on the flight. It was in Germany, and they gave me a tray full of different kinds of food all in one.
Yeah, yeah,
And I was like, what? There's like vegetables, there's butter, there's bread, there's meat, there's all these things in one place. And I'm thinking, where do I start? Because I have never seen anything like
yeah.
it. In Nigeria, it's easy. They give you one food, that's what it is. They give you a goosey, it's a goosey. They give you jollof rice. But
Yeah.
in this plane, they gave me appetizers in between meals, before and after. And I'm like, what is this? This could have been the Last Supper. But that was kind of my first culture shock of what the American experience would be like. So I literally had to like look over to my shoulder and tell the guy who was next to me. He's been doing this for a while, so he knew where things went. So a little bit of a funny story. There was this video that was going around probably like maybe 3 or 4 years ago of this. I think it was a guy who was coming from, I don't know where he was coming from, but he wasn't on a flight, and they gave him butter, and he didn't know that that was butter because like it looks so strong, and he started chewing it, and I'm like, that was probably me chewing on butter. But that was my first experience, and then I landed in Germany. I bought my first coffee, and then the coffee said it is hot, but I didn't know what it meant when it says it's hot. So I poured the whole thing in my mouth, and I got burnt. My whole mouth was burnt. So then coming to KC, the food was definitely, I would say, it took me a while to be able to kind of get used to it because I never wanted to go to a restaurant because the list that they had was too much. Like if you go, the first time I called to order pizza, I had to give the phone to my friend. I was like, I just want cheese pizza. They're like, what topping do you need? What this? I don't want all that. Just give me cheese pizza. I don't know what else you want. Talking about.
Oh, that has happened to me a lot of times. Go ahead.
Right. So I'm like, I call my friend like, yo, take the phone because I can't do this. I don't know. They're asking me too many questions. Right. And then you go to a restaurant and you point out one thing on the menu, like, I want this. They're like, do you want that with this or with that? I'm like, I don't want it with any other thing. Just whatever you have on that menu, give me that. So those were a culture shock that I was like, man, I can't go to a restaurant by myself, and the most expensive meal that I ever had back then was Chick-fil-A. Any day I could get Chick-fil-A, oh, I'm balling. I got paid. Because Chick-fil-A was on campus, sheesh, that was good food. But anyways, that was kind of my culture shock. Being able to, because the foods were different, they smelled different. Sometimes I will be walking outside and I smell something that smells like a soup back home, but it's not soup. Someone making pizza. But it's those things that I kind of had to navigate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually deeply amazing. Yeah, cause like I remember like the first internship I actually got. I think I actually went out with my boss then in the office,
Mhm.
and like the whole team actually went for lunch, and they brought this book, and hey, choose what you want to get from here and everything. And I was just confused. Like we had like lots of things there, but I was confused. And at the end of the day, I had to just humble myself and say, hey, can you help me just select something that, because it was something I was not actually used to. So, but like talk about like the weather. How did you actually deal with the weather? Because I remember like the first time I came, like that was like my first winter experience. And I remember like I've heard so much about Kansas City cold and all of those kinds of things. And that evening, I was actually heading to the library. I just had this palm sleepers on, and when I was coming back like around 9, 10 p.m., it was like a different experience. Like it was like my legs were pulling out, and I
Right.
actually had to run. So talk about that. How do you actually deal with that?
Yeah, I actually am still not used to the weather. That's just the truth of it. I still haven't been able to figure it out. I think for me, before I even came, I kind of Googled KC and it says the temperature was like negative 10 degrees, something like. I was like, that's crazy. So the first thing I did when I got here was like go to Burlington, um, get
Yeah,
me some jackets, and kind of waited for the winter to come. So the day I saw my first snow, it was 2016. Also, it was at Flushheim. It was just kind of a surreal experience because I seen snow in the movies, but I seen it in person is a whole different experience, right?
yeah,
Because I took pictures the whole night. Um, I was like, shoot, this is different, and then came the cold. I had my first kind of snowstorm that same year, and there was like I think it was like 4 feet of snow or something like that all over the place. And now then I realized snow is good for the movies, not in person, because you have to
yeah.
navigate it.
That is
It's
true.
not fun. It's not fun. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I had my boots, I had my jacket, but for the most part, I'm still not adjusted to it. I don't even know how. I'm surviving because when I was leaving, I have this thing with my nose. My nose always runs for some reason. I don't know why, but my brother was asking me from back home, was like, how are you going to survive? Because you're always having allergies and stuff like that. So it's been a learning experience. I have to say I'm still not used to it, but I think it's just one of those things that you have to deal with because it's what is required to be in the U.S., so to say. So
Yeah, that's actually amazing. Yeah, I think now we should actually shift gears to talk about the challenges that international students actually
right,
face in the US.
right.
And you were clearly an international student ambassador back then in campus. Like, what are like some of those challenges you can point? Because like we have like a whole lot of people today moving around and like around the world. Like a lot of students, either to Canada, to US, to the UK, and no matter where you are, like international students actually face like lots of challenges. So can you talk about some of the challenges that you faced being an international student and how you actually overcame those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll probably go from lowest to highest. I think one of the challenges that I really had when I got here was writing essays. The essays were different. The curriculum was different. Everything was kind of on its head. I never really wrote an essay back home until I got to the US, and then there was different formats, right? So that kind of was a big shift for me learning in that manner. So that's one thing I would say on the education side. And then I would say more, and I know a lot of international students still go through the same thing today, which is finances. Being able to pay for tuition, being able to pay for living, right? So which is why I became a campus ambassador and also an international ambassador, and I worked on campus as well because as an international student, you are always trying to find ways to pay for your tuition. You're trying to find ways to make a living.
Yeah.
So I think finances when it comes to getting jobs, because you can't work off campus, so you have to work on campus, which is usually $8.5 an hour back then. So that was kind of the biggest thing for me, being able to navigate how to make money and pay for my daily needs as also going to school, right? So I ended up, writing essays, and also I applied to different scholarship programs. And the interesting thing is this: the accounting department at UMKC threatened me so many times. I did. I'm like, I got about $50. They're like, how much can you pay today? I got like 20. If you don't want to take 20, you can start there. So they probably hated me because I was always there. Because like they were like, yeah, you're gonna be deported tomorrow. I'm like, well, I ain't going nowhere. I got classes tomorrow, so I'm about to be here. So that was one thing. I went there. The guy I emailed that guy maybe 100 times, and he probably hated to see my last name. Um, but those were the things. But I think that was the biggest part for me, right? It's like finding finance because you can't take a loan as an international student. You can't take any student loans. No, you have to figure out a way to make it through working on campus and doing scholarships. So at some point, I was working like 3 jobs on campus just trying to pay for tuition, trying to pay for things on campus, right? And then there's all these things called the emergency funds. And I was also able to get a funding from the block school. They had the scholarship. But the challenging thing about the scholarships is most times they don't pay backwards. They only pay going forward, right? So if you're owing behind, you can't get scholarships to pay what's already behind. So you have to figure out a way to pay that off. So somehow I survived, man. Like, yeah, I don't know if my am I freezing.
I can hear you clearly.
Okay, are we back? Okay,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think it froze. But what I was saying is, at some point I had like about 3 jobs trying to be able to figure out how to pay for tuition. And I also got scholarships, but the scholarships don't go backwards. They only pay forward. So if you're owing something behind,
Yeah.
you have to find a way to save money to pay it,
Yeah.
right? I think
Yeah. That's
if
right.
I had known that earlier before I came here, I probably would have been able to figure out ways to pay for those. But it was like when I got here, it was such a daunting thing. Like, yo, I have to go to school, but also I have to do like 18 credit hours, 20 credit hours, and also find jobs to pay for those things, as well as navigating safety. Right, safety was a huge one because I was living on Troost, right, and
Oh yeah.
most
Yeah.
times yeah, we're working at Sweeney. I had to go home at like 11 p.m. at night because you had to close the Sweeney, right?
Yeah.
Luckily for me, and this is a funny joke that I tell, because back then I was so broken and broke, I ain't got no money, so I was like, anybody who's gonna rob me, they probably helped me because I'll like they'll probably be like, you know what, I think I need to give you some money because I ain't got nothing. I have nothing. Um, the computer that I had back then was like kind of plastic. It was like I think it's like $100 computer. So like literally, I mean I had a bag of coins. I did have a bag of coins
Mm.
because like I said, I ate a lot of those burgers on the vending machine. You had to have coins, so I could give them a bag of coins but nothing else. And then maybe my food. But I was living on truce. A lot of my friends would say, "Oh, I got robbed, I got mugged," but luckily enough for me, I never had those situations happen to me. Um, the one time, so anytime, so there's two incidents. One incident, I was coming back at night, and I saw a guy who was behind me. I was like, "Is he following me or not?" But then he was kind of a distance. I was like looking behind me, walking behind me. Then when I hit a corner, this is how I always go home every night. I mean, I hit a corner, I put it on auto speed. I took off. So by the time he came around the corner, I was already at the other end. Right. So, and maybe other people don't know this. I'm an Aba boy. And I grew up in Aba. And they say when you're in Aba, if you bend down, you see Aba, which essentially means, you have to open your eyes. So I was always vigilant of
Yeah.
like, making sure that I was observant of my environment. If I saw a group of guys on the corner over there talking, I know to take the other street
Mm.
because I'm not about to greet and say hi. No. So every night, if I see you coming behind me, if I hit a corner, I'm taking off. I'm just taking off. So before you have ideas, I'm already at my house.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, so insecurity was one, man. Insecurity, finances, the education system was one of the biggest things. And at the same time, you're navigating those things. You're also navigating being on status because when those things you don't have those things, you are
You.
more likely to be out of status. So that's a lot of pressure on a young person to take. But
Mm.
again, there's no solution to that. So you kind of have to go through it. So
Yeah, that's right. And like there's this fear of this deportation, really like for international students here in the US, like,
right.
oh, if I actually, not registered maybe like 12 credit hours or 18 credit hours, I'm out of status, I can be deported and all those kinds of things. How did you deal with those kind of challenges? Like were there times whereby you were not able to maybe either pay and maybe you actually dropped out? Can you talk about
Yeah.
that phase in your journey?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how the whole Fired Up Studios organization started. Because in 2018, I was owing about $12,000 and I couldn't pay for it. My dad was sick and there was nowhere to get funding. No one was giving me money. I couldn't get any. I couldn't work. You can only make $8.50 enough to pay 12K. You can pay. You probably work for 12 years before making that money, right? So, I had to drop off by 2018. I left UMKC on the spring semester, and I was just I was out of status. I was trying to figure out how do I um, go around asking people, raising funds, come and pay this back, right? So that was the point where I left UMKC. Then I came back and got back into status, right? Because I was out for 8 months, and in most cases, if you're out for 8 months, you're not allowed to come back because like the grace period is like 3 months or 5 months, and I was out for eight.
Wow.
So if I ever got into trouble or got pulled over, I probably would have been going home. But that's just something to say about the immigrant resilience, right? It's like you don't have a lot of options. You just got to make this work, right? So I was out for 8 months, out there trying to be able to save up money to come back, and then I saved up all the money and I paid EMKC. I had $0 in my account, came back to EMKC, and I was like, hey, while I was through this journey, and it was like a really tough time in my life because I had a lot of anxiety, just like because you have this fear that you don't know what's gonna happen next. What if you get pulled over and then this happens, right? So it was at that point where I came back and I was like trying to start something to kind of inspire other people, inspire myself, which is why Fight Up Studios got started in the first place. To kind of help me through my own process. At that point, I was listening to a lot of motivational speeches, reading motivational books, reading the Bible, because I really needed inspiration or something to kind of like hold me up. Because it was a really tough time back then. So that was kind of my journey. I came back to MKC, paid up everything I owed, and then kind of re-enrolled, got back into status, and then finished my education. Which I'm lucky and favored enough to be able to say that because in most cases, some people don't get to finish. Some people leave their college and they never come back because it's more expensive for international students to be in school than
Mm.
everyday Americans, right?
Yeah.
Because you pay like 4 times more, because that's how the universities fund themselves, is mostly through international students, because there's a lot of money that comes from there. So that was kind of my experience. They say don't waste a good crisis. And that was kind of my crisis. And that's how Fight Up Studio started, because that was the lowest time in my life where I had to figure out, I realized, again, that no one is coming to help you. You got to figure this out. So, but I came back and I finished, and here we are. So, yeah.
Man, I actually deeply applaud you because I actually clearly remember those days when you would carry your like your cameras and inside your
Right,
trunk,
right.
right? And you're actually going to the studio like like on the top floor, and you always with your cameras, your lights, and everything.
Yes,
And it's actually great
yes,
to actually see how Fired Up Studios have actually evolved from Fired Up Casey, I believe, to
yes,
Fired. And like I clearly remember those days whereby you had opportunities back then on campus to talk to great business leaders, even the Chancellor of UMKC,
right,
Mayor of Kansas City, and all of that. So like, how is that going for you? Like how that been thus far? Like from
right.
days and now, like what's the feeling like?
No, I mean, like I said, like you were saying, you were we were working together there a lot, carrying things, carrying equipment, trying to shoot these episodes. And, back then when I was in college, there was no really a video kind of radio show. I was the one that kind of started putting lights into the studio and putting cameras. We would stick up our phones on the wall and then like kind of like staple and like just make it work, right? But those were just like, I really was passionate about interviewing people. I was like, hey, I want to get this out there. I want to get people to hear about these entrepreneurs, right? And I got an opportunity, like you said, to interview the chancellor, the mayor, the dean of Block School, and those were incredible experiences. I was lucky enough to be in that position. I ended up, interviewing a lot more people, about 100 entrepreneurs and leaders in the city. But I think for me, again, it was going back to, how do I make this valuable to people? How can I make sure that I pay my rent, but also I'm bringing value to my audience, right? Which is how we pivoted from just doing interviews of everyone and anyone to focusing more on entrepreneurs in the early stage of their companies, right? So it's been it's been a learning curve for me to kind of figure out where this becomes a business, because they say you can have great ideas, but if no one wants to pay for it, it's just an idea, right?
That's true.
So that was kind of my own research to figure out, why am I doing this and who does this benefit and why is this important, which is kind of how Student Entrepreneur started, which is the goal of that is to highlight entrepreneurs in underdog cities, underserved entrepreneurs, investors, to tell their stories and how they succeed in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And when I say ecosystem, it's essentially resources that support entrepreneurs and how you can utilize those to kind of, grow your company, right? So that was kind of me honing in my craft into, this is what I want to focus on. And then once I was able to do that, I think I've seen a little bit more success in terms of who
Mhm.
wants to pay for this.
Mhm.
And then Fight Up Studios is the company that produces all these videos. And I graduated 2021, and I started Fight Up Studios in 2022 because I applied to get my OPT, got denied, so I couldn't really work anywhere. So I was trying to figure out what I was going to do between 2021 and 2022, and then I already knew how to do video. I took a class online, kind of honing on my craft, improved myself, and then I started Fight Up Studios, and then going back to doing what I actually love doing, which is storytelling. So it's now a business where we are, making revenue from doing videos for different companies, and hopefully working on next year to expand on that and make even more impact in that area as well. So
Amazing. That's super amazing. But like at what point in your journey were you 100% sure that this is the part for you?
shoot,
Because
I'm not sure right
yeah.
now.
Yeah, no, because I clearly remember like back then on campus, like you would always tell
Right,
me that you're not ready to graduate and just go start looking for jobs.
that's right.
That you actually want to start something. Like you were so certain. So
Right.
like at what point 100% saying that hey, this is the part for me. Like this is
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, so I'm not a really good employee, just to be honest. I'm not the best employee. That's kind of where I figured, like, I don't think I can work for someone else, because I always have my own ideas on how I want to get this done, and I want to get it done like now, not tomorrow, not when everyone agrees. I want to get it done today. Um, and also, my dad was an entrepreneur, right? So I never saw him; he wasn't working for anybody. So I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But even when I was telling you that, it was scary. It was really scary to say that, because I am in the US. How am I going to be an entrepreneur from being an international student? That doesn't make any sense, right? I was saying that because that's what I really wanted, and that's how, the power of spoken words. Like you can say things into existence, right? I was saying that because I really wanted that, and then I took actions that aligned with that. So for me, it was more, it was more me saying, I really know what I don't want,
Mm,
and now working towards finding what I want, right? I don't want to work for someone, but the question is, how do you work for yourself and what are you going to do, right? And for me, opportunities presented themselves and I was ready for the opportunity and I took advantage of it, right? So I think from an onset, even going to school, when I realized my path was when I switched from engineering to business.
yeah.
Once I made that switch, I knew immediately that I wasn't going to work for nobody because I was just like, I can't see myself working for somebody. The way that I'm designed or whatever you would call it is just it doesn't work well as an employee. So I'm not the best employee. So and that's kind of how, yeah, that's kind of when I told myself that's what I was going to do. And fast forward, I'm doing that today. And when it comes to, am I sure this is the best thing? I don't know. I wake up every single day and still do it. So
You know,
yeah.
it actually takes a whole lot of resilience and doggedness to just keep that going.
All right.
But like what are like some of like the challenges you've actually faced in business? Like, saying how you've actually evolved. It took like a whole lot of both resources, time, hard work, dedication from back then on campus to where you are today. So what are like some of like the challenges? Because we're actually going to have like a lot of people that might watch this later and might actually also be interested in this part. Hey, I don't want to come to the US and just dive into the medical field or dive into this, and just I actually want to come here and start up something. So what are like some of like those challenges that you have been able to crush along the journey?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me, and this is probably for every entrepreneur, is kind of self-doubt, right? Not being sure of like if this is gonna be the thing, right? Because sometimes we as human beings we need validation from people, and sometimes when that doesn't happen, you feel like this is not the way to go, right? And the reason why I say that is because at every journey as an entrepreneur or as a human, you always have droughts, right? And those droughts is when things don't work the way you want it to work. Being able to go through that drought and come out is kind of where the has been toughest part for me. And when I say drought, I'm talking about when I wasn't getting income from the thing that I wanted to do, right? Um, I don't know why there's a sparkle thing going on. Um,
Yeah.
but it was like being able to because I started business in 2022, but then summer hit and most summers are for weddings and I only did one wedding and I'm like that's not for me. So being able to figure out what your niche is, the hardest part for me was finance and funding, being able to find funding that would help me build this thing from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3, um, as an international student. And having an international student status is another big thing, right? I have to take a risk. I literally took a risk and started my company while I was on F1 status, right? That was the big decision that I made. I got advice from different places, but I started it. I wasn't really making money, but I just put the LLC there. But it was a risk for me to even sign that document saying I'm having an LLC right now, right? So I think for me personally, it was being able to know that I can actually do this successfully because you have to believe in yourself to start with, even though you might say it, but when it comes to action, it's different. Uh, and what I would say to anyone who is an international student or who's thinking of coming to the US is when you're on campus, utilize the university's resources, utilize your email account, the
That is,
Outlook at edu at that.
that is so true.
Utilize that so much because whoever you email and reach out to, if they see your university's at behind it, it's more trustworthy than a cold email, right? And that's what I did. Each time I emailed someone, even while I was trying to start my business, I was also using my Outlook until I got my own email, right? Because it's a much more warmer introduction for you. Even on LinkedIn, if you say, "Hey, I'm a student. I'm doing this. I really want to grab coffee with you," that gives you a warm introduction. Because most people don't want to be sold on anything; they hate being sold, right? So that was my secret sauce: is using UMKCs. um, I would say they already have proof that they are an established organization. I don't have no proof that I'm an established organization. So my backend was UMKC. So when I was networking in the community, I was saying I'm a UMKC student, and like, oh yeah, UMKC, I went there too, and that's it. And then we connected, right? So always utilize your every single resource you have on campus. Use it as much as possible, so that when you get out of college, you can be able to, tap into that. I remember going to a job fair on campus, and most of the companies, people who were there from different companies knew me, and they're like, "Zeke, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be going for a job fair." I'm like, "Bro, I don't have a job. I need a job. I know you know me. Will you give me an internship?" Um, but again, that was just to show you that I was able to network outside UMKC. I was not just networking with students. I left the borders of campus, and I think that's the biggest that I learned is most students focus so much on the degree and the grades, which is all too well, which is good. I'm not the best. I'll say I'm a B student at best. I got a lot of A's, but I'm like B is kind of like my strength. So good grades are good, but for the most part, good grades don't get you successful in life. What gets you successful is who you are and what value you bring. If you're not able to communicate what you're selling to anyone, no one cares about your grade, right? Good grades means you know how to follow instructions, right? And that's not most time that won't get you solutions. Is how can you think on your feet and be able to solve problems as they arise, right?
Yeah,
So that's kind of my thought process of like what you can utilize. Yeah.
that's actually amazing. I think actually like another thing I just really want to like point out in what you just said is to for you to actually throw more light on this, because I think the problem that like a whole lot of business owners today have is, for instance, you start up something and it's not paying, and you
Hmm.
switch to something else, and we just see like a whole lot of people set up like different things, like 10 different things at once.
Right.
One is not, after like 6 7 months you move to another thing,
Right.
and we don't have like lots of people today that are so consistent and dogged and willing to follow one path until it actually pays out. So like in those days whereby you were not making money, for this like like fired up Casey and everything,
Right.
like what actually kept you going apart from just the willpower? Oh, I know that in one day, but what were like some of the things that really just kept you going? That like, hey,
Yeah.
one day this would end up paying.
I like what you just said. That consistency is. I'm not a very patient human being. Patience is not one of my biggest strengths. So being an entrepreneur has really tested my patience in the sense that I realized that things just take the amount of time they take. You can't fast forward it. You can't force it. You just got to take time and you have to go through it, right? I think something I heard from TD Jakes, which I don't really watch him a lot anymore, but one thing he said that really got to me is he said, the thing you're doing might not be your thing, but it will lead to the thing that will become
Yeah.
the future, right? So whatever you're doing, so long as you're doing that thing and focusing on it,
Yeah.
it will lead you to the main thing that you want to do, right? And it says if you are, if you polish shoe, be the best shoe polisher in the whole neighborhood. If you clean cars, be the best car cleaner in the whole neighborhood. For the most part, what you do doesn't really matter as much as how you do it, right? Because that's what people always remember: how you made them feel and how you created, provided your service. So, and I've gone on onto a different tangent, but going through that point when I was in the low, I wasn't making money, right? I was also, doing side hustles to be able to save up money. I think I don't even know what it is that made me keep going, but I think I'm just I'm really passionate about what I do that I can go without being paid. Like I'm really this is what I want to do, so it gives me satisfaction. Each time I sit down and do it, I'm satisfied because I'm doing what I want to do.
Mm.
That was the biggest thing. And then the second thing for me was people saying, "Hey, man, where you been, man? I've seen your stuff a couple months ago. Thank you for doing that."
Awesome.
Those are things that really keep me going, right? Because I know that someone out there, even if it's just one person, that really appreciates this work that I'm putting out, right? Those were things that kept me going through that process. And also, I knew that I really don't have another option. I have a degree, but again, I don't want to work for nobody. So it's either I make this work
Mm.
or have to end up working for someone else, right?
Yeah.
Which the plan B is not really a plan B. I have no plan B. This is a plan A. So if you really want to invest in something and it matters to you, you have to invest the time to make it grow, right? I always give the example of farming because I used to be, we were a family of farmers, right? My mom was a farmer, my dad was a farmer. And if you know anything about farming is once you plant a seed, you don't go back the next day looking for the corn seed to become corn. You give it time for the season to have for it to go through the season. I mean, when it's going through the season, you're not going to get any fruit. You're just going to see, the plant coming out green. It's going to take probably months to be able to give you what you're looking for, and that's kind of the mindset. When things are going down for me, I'm like, yeah, it's just part for the course, right? It's just part of what I got to go through because I know that there is something on the other side that is going to be that fruit. So that's my mindset. Each time something is not working around, I'm thinking, what is something I can do to adjust to make it better? But at the same time, I just gotta stick with it. You gotta have the this is why I also have my show, right? I had a guest, an older guest, who has done business for like 50 years, and he said, you have to have stick to itness, right?
Mm,
And that's just what he did. He stuck to it. If you can't stick to it, you're not gonna succeed.
yeah,
And that's just it.
amazing, awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
yeah, I think this will then take me to your app. Like, what was actually the motivation, behind starting your app, and what's the meaning of Ulam? Like, why do you name it Ulam? And just talk about that.
Yes. So I am a proud Igbo man. Anywhere I go, no matter what it is, I dress like that, I look like that, I talk like that. So I'm a proud Igbo man. I am not shy about my culture, right? So Ulum is an Igbo word that means my home. Um, and the reason why I started the platform was through my own experiences, being an international student, coming here with no resources. And most times, as an immigrant, leaving your country is one of the hardest things you can ever do because you're moving to a new country without knowing if you're going to find people there or not even know where you're going to stay. So creating this platform is kind of my way to give back and help someone else who's coming behind me. And people who have all probably already been here for a long time and still feel like they are not connected. So the platform is to create a home for every new immigrant in Kansas City and also in the US in general as we grow it out. So I would say, think of a more organized Google
Mm,
that doesn't just give you a search thing, but recommends things you need based on what you already filled out when you put in your
mm,
application. Right. So essentially, if you say I'm an international student, I've just been here for a month and I'm looking for housing, I'm looking for funding, I'm looking for where to find food, I'm looking for transportation. We then hear that and say, okay, here's a bus line and here's where how the bus works. Okay, here are churches who give you free food. This is where you can go and get free food, right? And then you're saying, hey, I'm trying to get my H1B. We say, okay, here are where you have to go in your office to go and get all those things. I want to get a license. All right, this is the best place to get a license. Go here and you get your license easily, and this is what you need to get there, right? So these are resources that other people who are not
mm,
immigrants don't know
mm.
until you're in that process, right? So that's kind of what we're building is like a platform where you can go in and feel like the people who built this know you because we really know you because we have gone through the same process, right? So that's the mindset behind that,
That's super amazing because I remember clearly I actually struggled with that. I remember when I newly moved to the US,
right?
even where to actually cut my hair, where to eat. Like, I just found only just one restaurant, and it was kind of like a Chinese restaurant. I just stuck to it because, like,
Right.
no other option,
You
like
know,
where to cut my hair, where to eat, and
that's right.
like the church to actually attend and all of those kinds of things. Like, I actually struggled with that. So just having like that kind of platform whereby new immigrants coming in can
Right.
be, that is super innovative. So thank you so
Yeah.
much.
No, thank you. And also speaking of haircut, I have to learn how to cut my own hair. So I cut most of the time I cut my hair because I was like I'm not about to share the $50 with a barber. I don't have money to share with no barber. So I'm about to and most times I got it right and sometimes I didn't get the haircut right, but I did it anyway.
No,
So that's neither
no,
here nor there.
you're actually doing a very great job right now.
No, this one is not me.
Okay,
This is not me. This is not me.
okay,
This
okay.
is a professional barber, which is doing amazing work. But sometimes I get it right. Sometimes it's the Lord's doing. So we bless my heart.
No, no,
So, anyways, go ahead.
no, like it's super super amazing because like I know that like a whole lot of like the problems we actually have is that we have people that have come in before. Well, people are not willing to share their stories, even from like their past experiences. People just get things done and just keep going. but like having someone that can look back and with your own experience and help someone out there, just hold someone out there's hand and pull them in and help them walk the spot is super super amazing. So truly, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Because if like I'm just reminiscing, and if this app were to be there, I think like the years, I think how many years ago have I been here, but if this app were to be there, it would have been super 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 helpful.
Yes.
you know
Same for me. Same for me. If I had a
yeah,
place, yo, my first apartment was on Craigslist. Craigslist was where I got my apartment. And if anyone knows anything about Craigslist, that you don't want to go to Craigslist. That's all I gotta say about that. So that's all I had back then. So yeah.
no,
So I need what I'm doing is something that I would have needed when I got here. I still probably need it as we go forward. So I'm hoping that it helps people cut short the amount of times it takes for you to go through culture shock and make it easier for you to have better life here. So
that's amazing. That's amazing. Then also like for the app, that I think that was like a few weeks ago where you were given like a grant of I think $30,000.
yes,
How's that? Like what was like the feeling for you?
man, that was crazy. I still didn't believe that I was sitting there when that was happening. Like I said, man, I'm a young kid from Aba, Abia State, Nigeria. I grew up in Orata, and I'm a true Aba boy. So, like, being able to stand in front of all these amazing investors and leaders in the city and tell my story on stage for 3 minutes, and then everybody literally, so how it works is you pitch your company, and there was 8 of us. So we all pitched our companies,
Wow.
and then there was about 100 people in the audience, and each person had $1,000 check.
Wow.
So they would choose who they would give it $1,000 after everyone has pitched. And I was the last one to go. And when I was done, I sat down and then everyone was like, ulum, 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 ulum. I was like, whoa.
For me.
Um, I always say this. Going into that pitch, I was expecting at least 10,000 because I've networked a lot with a lot of people because I know a lot of people who are on the list who
Yeah.
to be there. But when it was like everyone was like saying the name and I was like, whoa, I didn't expect this kind of I would support, and it was overwhelming. It was really overwhelming. It was at that point where I was like, man, this is this is truly happening right now. Like I didn't, my expectations were not that high, but I just knew I was gonna go there and do my best. So
Mm.
whatever I do, I pour my heart into it and I go all the way in. And that really showed in that moment because I was there on the stage as myself. Even though I was afraid, I was, anxious, but I still pulled up and, showed out. So yeah, it was, shoot, man, it was just a reflection of how far I've come from just Nigeria to here. Yeah, it was an, yeah, it was a surreal moment for me, honestly. So I was grateful for all the support that I got that day, and I was pitching with all these amazing entrepreneurs on stage. Their business ideas was magnificent. I was like, how am I gonna go up against every single one on this stage and get my story heard? And seeing that amount of support just made me just overwhelmingly just grateful and proud. So
That's really awesome. And also it also still reminds me on the importance of just taking that step, because just imagine like you never ever started that app today, you would not
right,
know, like in the future you would actually be giving $30,000, and who knows what is actually coming next, maybe like $1 million. 'Cause
that's what I'm hoping. Let's get it.
I feel is super important, because like we have like a whole lot of people with ideas, and people
Right,
are not willing to invest the time, and
right.
invest the resources, like invest the time, like in building those ideas from the ground, and so just
Yeah.
it just reminds me of the importance of taking steps.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, you're right. I think for the most part, a lot of people have ideas. I think what stops people is the fear of, is this crazy or is people gonna really believe or trust in this? Like the fear of you can't start thinking about all the things that would go wrong before you even start,
Mm,
right? And for the most part, there's a chance that those things are not gonna happen. You're just in your head, right? And for me, and this is why I feel like entrepreneurship is kind of like my thing. Is I think of an idea and then 2 days after that I'm already doing that idea. So it doesn't take me time. You know what I mean? So like it doesn't take me time at all. So like I think another thing and the most important key of this, and I want everyone who's watching to listen to this, right? You have to find an environment, an ecosystem, or a place where other people who are doing the same thing or who've done the same thing you're trying to do are at, right? Mentors, people who can mentor you and help you get step by step. That's kind of my secret sauce. I always shout out Keystone Innovation District, Kevin McGinnis, Stephen Anthony with Anthony Global, Joshua Lewis with Up Down Nightlife, which is and now Kin Salter as well. These are people who are leaders who have done the things that I'm trying to do and know what the best steps are. And also a shout out to Charlotte. And then I have my incredible team, Bing, Low, and Athavia. And I wouldn't forget my wife is also a big supporter as well.
That's
Because
right.
without her, I wouldn't be able to be doing all these crazy ideas because I have to have that support. But coming back to my point is you have to have mentors and people who've already gone there that you can ask questions. And then another thing, and the most important thing is when you hear an advice, take it, take action, right? Because a lot of people watch motivational speeches, but they never apply anything that they say on those videos. If you never apply it, it is just music to your
Right.
ears. It's just good words. It doesn't mean anything. So when people advise you on things, don't do all of it.
Mm,
Take what's good for you and leave the what's not good, right? They always say, don't throw away the baby with the
mm.
bathwater, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Take what's important to you and then build up on that. And again, second and most importantly, do things that are scare you. Do things that you're afraid of. Things that are you are afraid of, most times is where your solution is at. Like it's where your success is at. Because those things you're afraid of, you being afraid of it will make you so much conscious that you work hard to improve in it, right? Public speaking was one of my biggest fears as a kid, but I knew that, so I had to work hard and being able to kind of put myself in positions. Even on campus, I was a campus ambassador. I was an international ambassador. That means I was speaking to people all the time. And
Mm.
then even when I was in marketing in the business school, I would be the one on the team to give the speeches in terms of like our marketing. They trusted me to do the speeches because they knew that
These
I
guys.
became good at
Yeah,
it, right? So
yeah.
if you talk to anyone who was in my marketing class, they say, yeah, Zeke was a really good presenter because
Me.
I would make it my own thing. I would make jokes, I make it my own thing because I realized that that's what I wanted to do. So I always put my best foot in it because I know that's the future for me. So yeah, it's kind of a
Awesome,
summary of that.
Nick, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for that. And
Yes.
also, I also wanted to just throw light on like one's mindset, because I feel it's one of like the problems that we see today, actually, like with foreigners, coming in and thinking that, oh, because I'm an immigrant or something, I think this people here are kind of like better, kind of doing better. Can you talk about, because like you just coming out to talk to like the crowd and everything, it means you actually worked on your mindset. And like you're actually meeting with CEOs of organizations today, and you're talking to business people like around the world. It means you actually worked on your mindset, like, hey,
Right.
everyone is equal, and hey, we can get this done, and like I'm actually so valuable as you are. So talk about that working on your mindset and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a process, right? It's in Nigeria, I remember my first visa interview, I got denied because I was so scared. I was like, this is not even a human being who's interviewing me. This is someone who holds my future in their hands, right? But after I got advice of like, hey, this is actually not a human being like you. They just have a position. They're an employee of someone else,
Mm,
right? So my mindset is always, regardless of who you are, if you're the biggest celebrity and I adore you, I appreciate you, but at the same time, at the core of it, you're a human being, right? When I was on stage, everyone over there were human beings that I would talk to on a normal day. Like I would shake your hand and talk with you.
yeah.
The fact that you are a crowd doesn't make it a difference for me, right? So when I step in a room, I step in a room with I'm grateful, but at the same time, I know the value that I carry. I know what I'm here for, right? If you know your value, you wouldn't question what other people think or who you're talking to, right?
Mm,
Um, I mean, yeah, it took me a lot of work. I think for me, again, it was going back to the motivational speeches, and I say that like I watch a lot of Les Brown, I watch a lot of Tony Robbins, I watch a lot of
mm,
Brian Tracy. I listen to all those. Right, I've watched like hours of listen to hours of those content, and it's deep rooted in my mind. Like I don't even know it; it's subconsciously deep rooted in me. And that's why whenever I pull up to a space, I just show up as me. There's really no reason to fear, regardless of what the worst thing that could have happened to me, I would say has happened. Like I almost got deported. Like shoot, what are you talking about, right? I also have this notification on my phone. I have a note.
I think you actually went mute. I can't hear you again.
Sorry. I'm trying to get the thing. I have a reminder that comes up every day that says you are a free man in this world. You can go and take on anything, right? And that's like a reminder every morning that I see. I'm like, yep, yep, yep. I'm here. I'm free. It's a privilege to be free. So why not? So I think for me, just a mindset. I think also it's a Nigerian thing. In Loki is a Nigerian thing because Nigerians, we pull up to a space and we are ourselves. You know, either you like us, you don't like us. We want to come here. We know our value, right? So I'm not scared about people. I appreciate people. I'm grateful for them, and I want to be in their presence because I know what I carry as a person. So I think you have to go through process of asking yourself, who are you
Mhm.
and what do you bring to the table? Like if you don't know why you are here and what you're doing, it's hard for you to be able to stand confidently because you're always doubting yourself because you don't know what you're doing or what's going on. So if you know your value, obviously there's comparisons that come, that things are going to happen to you to question that. But once you go through different things, the more you win, the more you fail and you learn from your failure and win, the more confident you get, right?
Mm.
Confidence comes through winning things.
Winning.
And the more you succeed in different things, you are sure of who you are. I can do that. If I did that, I could probably do the next thing. If I did that, probably do this. So I think it's like training, right? Boxers, they box for 12 rounds, but it's trained for like 6, 8 months. Then boxing for 12 rounds is not when it happens. It happens in 8 months
That-
behind. So
That's true.
whatever you want to do, you have to train yourself to be in that mindset.
That's actually amazing. Thank you so much for that. And
Yes.
also, so like if I'm actually to take that to public speaking today, because research has it that after the fear of death, that a lot of people are scared of speaking
Right.
publicly, and that happened today. Like it is everywhere. But Americans, I can clearly remember one project I was on, and I was supposed to give like a presentation back then on campus. And to be honest with you, I was actually getting nervous,
Yes.
and the person on my team too, they were all nervous. So I was like, okay, these guys are nervous, and I can do it. Because initially I was thinking maybe, okay, I'm actually nervous because
Right.